Signore e signori, benvenuti al Summit AWS di Milano. Accogliamo sul palco Nicola Previati, Head of AWS Italy.
Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti all'AWS Summit di Milano. È una grandissima emozione avervi qui di fronte. Stavo pensando prima, quando hanno aperto le porte e vi ho visto entrare, il primo evento che abbiamo fatto qui a Milano poco più di 4 anni fa. Eravamo 30 persone, più o meno. Oggi siamo un po' di più, quindi grazie a tutti di essere venuti, di essere qui con noi durante questa giornata. Quello che vorrei fare durante questi pochi minuti di introduzione è presentarvi un po' la struttura, l'organizzazione della giornata, darvi visibilità di tutte le cose che potete fare oggi qui al Summit. Partiamo velocemente dall'agenda. Il keynote partirà subito dopo questa breve introduzione, quindi avremo il CTO di Amazon, Werner Vogels, che presenterà il keynote, a cui parteciperanno appunto clienti importanti che porteranno la loro esperienza. Dopo il pranzo, subito dopo il keynote, partiremo con le breakout session. Vedremo fra un attimo in dettaglio quali sono i temi che andremo a trattare durante queste breakout session. Comunque nell'agenda avete la possibilità già da ora di scegliere quelle che preferite seguire. Durante tutto l'arco della giornata avete il Partner Expo a disposizione qui subito fuori dalla sala, e gli Hands-on Lab. Gli Hands-on Lab sono dei laboratori online che potete fare con il supporto dei nostri colleghi per approfondire determinate tematiche legate a AWS, o semplicemente per mettervi alla prova e capire qual è il livello di conoscenza di AWS che avete. Gli Hands-on Lab li trovate nel corridoio laterale sulla sinistra, usciti dalla sala, e sono aperti da ora fino a questa sera alle 7. Abbiamo parlato delle breakout session, abbiamo 3 tracce principali. Allora, servizi AWS e live demo. Questa traccia, un insieme di sessioni, si terranno in questa sala. Abbiamo poi l'Enterprise and Security e Big Data Analytics. Queste invece verranno ospitate in 2 sale che trovate sempre nel corridoio sulla sinistra all'uscita della sala. Durante tutte le sessioni breakout e gran parte delle sessioni breakout e durante il keynote, come dicevo prima, abbiamo il piacere di avere molti clienti che porteranno la loro esperienza. Approfitto da subito per ringraziarli tantissimo. Pensiamo che per voi sentire la voce diretta del cliente che porta la sua esperienza, che vi presenta quali sono stati gli step che hanno seguito per adottare le nostre tecnologie, quali sono i benefici, possa essere di valore. Un ringraziamento particolare ovviamente agli sponsor. Senza di loro sarebbe stato difficile organizzare questo summit, quindi un ringraziamento a Reply e a Spindox come nostri platinum sponsor, che tra le altre cose durante il break del pranzo organizzano in un'altra delle sale che trovate sulla sinistra ulteriori approfondimenti. Quindi durante il pranzo, se volete, avete la possibilità di approfondire ulteriormente con i nostri partner determinati temi legati appunto a AWS e la loro esperienza su AWS. Un ringraziamento anche al Wi-Fi sponsor. Trovate le informazioni per collegarvi alla Wi-Fi nel retro del vostro badge, quindi un ringraziamento a New Relic e a Fastlane invece, che sponsorizza gli Hands-on Lab di cui abbiamo parlato prima. Molti altri sponsor sono presenti all'Expo degli sponsor qui all'uscita. Oggi è l'occasione per poterli conoscere. Allora, una delle richieste che riceviamo più spesso quando un cliente incomincia a muovere i primi passi su AWS è ok, ma poi se volessi avere un partner che mi supporta, qual è il partner giusto per me? Bene, oggi avete la possibilità di conoscerli, avete dai grandi system integrator globali a quelli nazionali, alle cloud boutique nate specificatamente per lavorare nel cloud, e allo stesso modo avete software vendor di livello internazionale. Quindi è veramente una buona occasione per poter parlare con loro. Ancora, durante tutta la giornata, questa volta lo trovate il nostro stand all'uscita della sala sulla destra. Qui avete invece la possibilità di parlare con i nostri esperti, i nostri solution architect, altri colleghi. Create il link, potete chiedere approfondimenti e poi ovviamente possiamo continuare a darvi supporto dopo il summit nei prossimi giorni. Ultima nota legata invece al nostro hashtag di Twitter, quindi AWS Summit, per i vostri commenti è già attivo, quindi insomma, potete cominciare fin da subito a utilizzarlo per darci i vostri feedback. Bene, è arrivato a questo punto il momento di accogliere sul palco, ed è un piacere per noi ospitarlo qui all'AWS Summit di Milano, il CTO di Amazon, Werner Vogels.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Buongiorno, Milano. Hey, is that all I get back? I won't embarrass myself any further than that, yeah? I'm humbled. You know, a first summit here in Milan, in Italy, and thank you all for coming out here today. So, the way that I look at summits like this is that it's intended mostly as an educational event. We're not here to sell you anything. It's not a sales event. It's purely intended for some level of education. There's all these breakout sessions this afternoon. Please take advantage of all the opportunities to learn about the different services and things like that. So for my keynote this morning, it's not me that's important. Yeah, we have very fortunate that we have 3 customers and a good partner to come on stage today and talk about their journey to the cloud, their experiences. How have they been using AWS, and what are their experiences with that? And we always ask our customers to be as honest as possible. Yeah, but it's not necessary for them to sell us or anything like that. I've always believed that our services should be seductive by themselves. Yeah? If you don't feel drawn to them, maybe they're not the right tools for you. So I'll do a little bit of a sort of state of the business in this talk, and then we'll dive into several areas of AWS where we've been innovating lately and delivering new innovative services, and talk a bit about those. So it is really that we have come to a point where cloud has become the new normal. Yeah? If you look at many enterprises, they all have a cloud-first strategy in place. Anything new that's going to happen will move to the cloud. And then very large sections of an IoT CIO's budget, such as, for example, dev and test, is all moving to the cloud. Many migrations are happening, and you'll hear from some of our customers today about their migrations. And often, this is, as I said, it's a journey. So, you know, you're not immediately closing down all your data centers and moving things over to the cloud. It's something that will take time and over progress. And we'll talk a bit about how you can live in both worlds very comfortably while maintaining security, high reliability, scale, good performance at the lowest cost possible. So now that so many companies are using it, we see that AWS is actually pretty successful. You know? Well over 1 million businesses are running on this platform each month. And it's been growing at a very steady rate. We're very fortunate that this has resulted in a very significant business for Amazon. And so Jeff Bezos, in his letter to shareholders that was just released a few weeks ago, he mentioned that he expects AWS to do $10 billion business, $10 billion revenue this year, which is pretty unique. First of all, that makes us the fastest growing IT enterprise services company ever. And it's even more remarkable because the business model of AWS is so radical different from the business model of all the other old IT companies. Remember, and I've been on the receiving end of that, one of the reasons for us for driving this different business model was that we really felt that it was always the provider that was in charge and never us as a customer. Yeah, if I had to buy databases, I had to write this massive big check up front, even before I used the database. And you would buy many more licenses often than that you needed. In conversations with CIOs, I've heard that a typical number is that 30% of licenses go unused, but you did pay for them already. And so in all the old style world, and the only way to drive costs down there was to make very long-term contracts. Now, with the economic model that we set with AWS, we wanted to break through that. Amazon, the retailer as well, prides itself on being the Earth's most customer-centric company. And we try to apply that customer centricity also to the cloud business. So now the customer is in charge. You can walk away whenever you want. There's no contract necessary, there's no contract that is keeping you back. Yeah? And also, you only pay for what you've used. And that makes these numbers so much more interesting. This is not because you paid up front to us to be allowed to use our services. No, this is money that you spend on our services, because that's how much usage there is. So that's really impressive. We're very fortunate to have a large set of customers. Yeah, of course, today we'll have Music Match as well here as speakers, so many startups today that are the household names even. Airbnb, Uber, Dropbox, all of them have grown up on the cloud, making use of our services there. Enterprises equally. And of course, names like Vodafone Italy, Lamborghini, and of course today we're very fortunate to have here also Enel and Mediaset here to talk to you about their journey to the cloud. Many enterprise, many public sectors, well over 2,000 government agencies around the world, thousands of universities, such as, for example, the Polytechnic here in Milan is making use of AWS, but also many non-profits. Well over 17,500 non-profit organizations are running on our platform. And we couldn't do this without our ecosystem of system integrators. And I'd really like to take a shout out to Storm Reply, who is our main sponsor here today, and which really helps Italian companies to move onto the cloud. And of course, you also need access to every piece of software that you would like. And all of these ISVs have committed themselves to building their software, to making sure their software runs on AWS. And if they have a software as a service project, they will make sure that it runs on AWS. So, what is it that is actually driving all these companies to consider the cloud? Yeah? I think if you take a step back and look at where many enterprises are focused on today, it's on digital transformation. Yeah, and so digital used to be something that sat underneath your marketing department somewhere. And we're trying to flip that over to make sure that digital sits underneath every business unit. So why is that? Why are enterprises so focused on going to a digital transformation? I think there's 3 reasons for it. First and foremost, it's pure a matter of survival. Remember that in the past, physical resources sort of kept companies back from becoming competitors to very well-established businesses. But these days, with cloud, there's no longer a resource constraint that will keep you from competing with a big company. And we see that, for example, in financial services. There's all sorts of young businesses sprouting up that do particular insurances better, or that do money transfers better. Yeah? And so competition suddenly is coming from all sorts of directions. No longer your 5 established competitors. And so the way to win in that world is to deliver new features and functionalities towards your customers really quickly. And you only can do that in a digital world. So it's a pure matter of survival. And remember that if you look back, so in the US, you have this index called the S&P 500 that has sort of the 500 most valuable companies in the US. From the origin, when this index was established, that was about 100 years ago, there's only one company left, General Electric. And it's interesting to see why the General Electric survive is because they adapt with the times. At this moment, General Electric is moving 9,000 workloads over from their own data centers into AWS. And they will close 30 of their 34 data centers. They're really a company that knows how to continue to move fast. If you look back a few decades ago, the average lifetime of a company on the S&P 500 was 60 years. Now it's 13 years. The expectation is that around 2025, 75% of the companies that are now on the S&P 500 will no longer exist. So the notion of survival is real for companies. If you want to survive, you need to become digital, and you need to go through this digital transformation. The second point, I think, which drives the digital transformation is that even that we've overcome the whole monetary crisis of 2008, capital is still scarce in the market. So efficiencies remain extremely important. And the third thing that I've heard many of our customers say of reasons why they're going through digital transformation is that to attract young talent. Young individuals, young professionals no longer want to work for an old, stuffy company. They want to work for a company that is actually customer-centric and customer-focused and wants to move fast. So these are sort of drivers behind the digital transformation. And to be able to do this, you need to move fast. And this is one of the biggest drivers behind the popularity of AWS, the ability to access resources whenever you want them in any part of your organization. A good example of that is the world of data warehousing. Yeah, so these are the typical old data warehouses, a centralized, constrained resource that was extremely expensive. And because it's so expensive, it's always loaded up to 100%. And if then a business unit would come and ask for, can I do something new? Because everybody wants to start using analytics. They say, no, we can't do that. Or maybe next week you can have some time on the data warehouse. So that model is totally failing the whole new digital enterprise. So this is one of the reasons why Redshift for a very long time was one of our fastest growing services. Because we see a radical shift in data warehousing happening. When we developed Redshift, it didn't only become a replacement or an augmentation of the centralized data warehouse. Suddenly, each business unit could start doing their own data warehousing. They no longer had to ask the centralized IT department whether they could do so. They just could do themselves. And as such, we've seen a complete shift where business units, each and every one, now starts integrating analytics into the things that they're doing it by themselves, running a data warehouse for 4 hours on a Thursday afternoon, or wherever they need one. They don't need a 24/7 one. And sometimes they want to do a lot of work and allocate a 1,000-node data warehouse, and sometimes only a 5 one. So total control. We also delivered Amazon QuickSight with that, such that even the most non-technical person in your business unit can start making use of business intelligence by themselves without having to go through sort of the traditional gatekeepers at the IT department. So for all of this, it means that the cloud removes the constraints of the past. But don't take my word for it. I would like to invite on stage Fabio Veronese, of NL, the head of ICT operations, to talk about their journey to the cloud. Thank you.
Thank you. Buongiorno a tutti, parlerò in italiano così è un po' più semplice. Allora, nel mondo dell'energia per decenni tutto si è retto su una assunzione che con il passare del tempo è diventata quasi una percezione di una legge immodificabile, e cioè che l'energia è un servizio primario di tale importanza che può essere considerata una proxy della ricchezza di un paese, che normalmente invece si misura con il PIL, che è l'insieme dei prodotti e servizi prodotti in quel paese. Ebbene, un paese nel quale il consumo medio di energia per abitante è molto alto, normalmente significa che quel paese è un'economia ricca. Come pure il fatto che il PIL di un paese cresca, questo invariabilmente si è sempre riflesso in un aumento dei consumi di energia. Ebbene, questa legge così importante è solo una delle tante cose che la crisi degli ultimi anni ha spazzato via completamente. Adesso ormai la crescita non si distingue più tra paesi sviluppati o meno sviluppati. Ci sono paesi sviluppati che crescono e paesi emergenti che hanno grossissimi problemi. Ma ancora di più non è più vero che l'indicatore di crescita di un paese comporta una crescita dei consumi elettrici. Anzi, nelle economie sviluppate, se l'economia riprende, non riprendono i consumi. Al contrario, in paesi fortemente in crisi, in paesi in via di sviluppo, nonostante siano in crisi, penso per esempio al Brasile, il servizio elettrico è considerato praticamente quasi un diritto umano e quindi non lo si può negare. A questo aggiungiamo poi il fatto che, lo sapete tutti, il prezzo delle materie prime è drasticamente crollato. Solo un anno fa il petrolio costava 4 volte quello che costa adesso e quindi era una cosa assolutamente non prevedibile. Se a tutto ciò aggiungiamo dei trend che sono difficilmente controvertibili, come per esempio la crescita della popolazione o l'importanza sempre più grande dei vincoli ambientali e l'incipiente rivoluzione tecnologica, ebbene tutto ciò ha reso il mercato dell'energia, tipicamente lento e poco interessante, un posto un po' più frizzante. E se quindi tutto ciò sta cambiando nel mondo dell'energia, come può Enel non cambiare? Io credo che qui dentro tutti conosciate Enel. Magari molti di voi sanno anche che Enel ha cambiato logo da 3 mesi. Quanti lo sapevano qui? Posso vedere le mani? Un buon risultato. Quanti di voi invece sapevano che le revenues di Enel per più di metà vengono dall'estero oramai? Ecco. Allora, per quelli che non lo sapevano può essere importante vedere questa slide. Non la vado a commentare, ma fa vedere quanto ormai sia rilevante le operazioni multinazionali di Enel. Sommandole tutte assieme, diciamo che ormai Enel ha 61 milioni di clienti, e per citare un'altra classifica rispetto a quella che ha detto Werner, non delle prime 500 aziende, ma delle 50 aziende che saranno protagoniste quest'anno per cambiare il mondo, Enel è stata citata al 5º posto. Anche perché l'elettricità è considerata, come vedete, uno degli impatti primari sull'evoluzione del paese. Infine, Enel ha sviluppato 30 milioni di contatori elettronici che sono stati impiantati in Italia, diciamo, a partire da 15 anni fa, e adesso siamo sul punto di rinnovarli. Per dare un'idea delle dimensioni di Enel relative con altri, qui vedete una slide che nella parte inferiore c'è fatto un confronto con 2 utility tedesche, non vi dirò quali, ma penso che non sia difficile trovare, 2 utility francesi ed una spagnola. Come vedete, Enel ha delle dimensioni piuttosto remarkable. Per darvi un'idea, i 2 milioni di chilometri di reti la rendono l'azienda di distribuzione più grande al mondo, e la parte rinnovabile dà l'idea che la capacità rinnovabile installata dall'Enel è quella dell'azienda più rilevante al mondo. Ecco, ciò nonostante, anche Enel deve porsi il problema di sopravvivere, perché il mondo cambia molto rapidamente E quindi, per muoversi così rapidamente in un mercato che adesso ha un tasso di sviluppo molto più rapido, abbiamo preso la sfida della digital transformation, che per noi essenzialmente vuol dire questo. Enel aveva una decina di data center, diciamo, più o meno, e per anni ha discusso nelle sue due anime, probabilmente sapete, il mondo tradizionalmente italiano aveva tutte le operation on-premises ed era molto orgoglioso di averle on-premises perché aveva il controllo per molti motivi. Il mondo invece spagnolo-sudamericano aveva tutte le operation in outsourcing ed era molto orgoglioso di avere le operazioni outsourcing perché erano molto cost effective. Dibattito, discussione, 2 o 3 anni, chi vince, chi ha torto, così. Poi è venuto fuori il cloud e ha vinto il terzo incomodo. L'idea è non si fanno in casa, non si fa completamente in outsourcing, ma si usano le facility per chi le sa fare meglio usando le infrastrutture e le si governano internamente. Questa è stata la scelta. Un public cloud, non tutti quei sinonimi tipo private cloud, oppure, che è un modo diverso per parlare dei servizi interni, oppure il managed cloud, che è un altro proxy dei contratti di outsourcing. L'idea è una scelta all-in, tutta fuori, che riguarda il 75% dell'infrastruttura, e che deve essere fatta in 9 mesi. Queste sono le dimensioni della sfida e questo è dove siamo arrivati. Questo è il concetto. Abbiamo su circa i 10.000 server che fanno le dimensioni dell'Enel, ne abbiamo migrati, come vedete, 5.000, sono quasi 6.000 adesso, devo dire la verità. Abbiamo cominciato a settembre e praticamente ne abbiamo migrati 25 al giorno. 25 al giorno anche di sabato, anche di domenica, anche a Natale, Santo Stefano, Capodanno, anche a Pasqua. Vi assicuro che li migreremo anche il 25 aprile e il 1 maggio. Forse ci salviamo il 2 giugno perché noi dobbiamo assolutamente chiudere il programma il 31 maggio, quindi dovremmo riuscire a toglierlo. E anche stanotte ne abbiamo spostati. Il grosso, come vedete, va su AWS, però abbiamo anche alcuni servizi SAP che vanno sul cloud di SAP. L'ultima parte è una riorganizzazione interna, concentrando la parte residua proprio qui a Milano, ma è solo una fase preparatoria ad un ulteriore step. Questo ha portato questi tipi di vantaggi. Come vedete, la lower end della forchetta è un 11% di saving sui costi di CPU e un 20% di saving sullo storage, solo dovuto al prendo, lift and shift. Se poi però guardo un po' meglio quello che ho fatto e comincio a dire no, ma qui ci ho dato un po' troppo spazio, è meglio che lo tolga, qui ci ho dato troppe risorse, le posso aggiustare, posso usare le reserve distance, posso spegnere di notte, tutte queste cose qui che si imparano nel giro dei mesi, quei numeri diventano 21% o 61%. E se si parla di agility, noi avevamo, probabilmente non c'era da vantarsi, avevamo 3 o 4 settimane, circa un mese, ed eravamo contenti quando riuscivamo a dare qualcosa in meno di un mese. Okay? Adesso quel tempo di provision è ridotto a 2 giorni. Però AWS non è solo uno spazio per spostare dati, sarebbe riduttivo considerarlo così. Ne parlavo 3 settimane fa con il responsabile di AWS mondiale. L'idea è che AWS abiliti la possibilità di gestire spazi in maniera non vincolata per l'IoT e per i big data. Ed in Enel stiamo utilizzando AWS IoT, partecipiamo al programma Beta Program, per abilitare l'Internet of Things anche qui in Italia. Per darvi un'idea, la nuova generazione di contatori elettronici utilizzerà AWS come piattaforma di raccolta dati e lo useremo anche nelle piattaforme di Connected Home e nei programmi di mobilità elettrica. Per chiudere, quindi, io credo che faccio IT da circa 25 anni e credo che siamo di nuovo in una fase d'oro dell'IT, nella quale c'è una incipiente rivoluzione che ci permette di fare un sacco di cose. L'importante è però assolutamente farle in fretta e su questo devo dire che AWS ha dato una grossa mano. Grazie a tutti.
Thank you, Fabio. An extremely impressive case study. So thank you for allowing us to help you there. I think it is one of the cooler things, especially about this case study, because it shows that you can make significant improvements in agility while reducing cost. So you get the best of both worlds. Yeah? It really is about removing constraints, the constraints that hold you back to move faster. And one of what's driving this, I think everything, all these physical resources that you used to have to deal with. Yeah? If you wanted to launch a new application, let's say in South America, you had to go do data center negotiations in Sao Paulo, you had to work on the network, you had to make sure that you got servers in there. All of that is almost a waste of time because it doesn't contribute to actually serving your customers better. Now, with one click of a button, you can launch it anywhere in the world. You want to launch something in Australia, Japan, South Korea, all of those are just one click away for you. And so everything now is programmable. Everything has an API. Everything has become software. And so all of these things where you had to go through long procurement cycles, those cycles are no longer there. So if it would be just technology, and the technology is cool, yeah? But if it would be just a technology evolution going from mainframe to mini, to client server, to web-based, and then now cloud, this would not be this big. The driver behind the growth of cloud is the economic model that sits with it. You know, the fact that you no longer have to put up capital to get started. So capital shifts to OpEx, CapEx shifts to OpEx. But if that would be the only thing, this will be just an accounting trick. It's not. We also help you reduce your operational expense by reducing and being able to shed resources that you no longer need or not need for that particular moment. As I mentioned earlier on, dev and test is one of those areas where this is most obvious. I've asked CIOs around the world how much of their budget goes into dev and test. And you hear numbers between 50 and 70% of their budget. By moving dev and test over to the cloud, you can significantly reduce those costs. Because you can shed or turn off capacity that you don't need when your developers go home. And so I've heard numbers, reducing dev and test costs to 25% is a real significant help for most of our customers because they can use that money somewhere else. Capacity planning, no longer an issue. Yeah, you have unlimited capacity at your fingertips whenever you need it. All of this undifferentiated heavy lifting that has nothing to do with building better businesses, all that undifferentiated lifting is taken on by Amazon. And as I said earlier, going global in minutes is really one of the strengths of the cloud. So at this moment, we have 12 regions around the world. And this year, we'll be adding 5 more. 1 more in China, 1 in India, 1 in the UK, another one on the East Coast in the US in Ohio, and 1 in Canada and Montreal. So we'll continue to do this international expansion. After these 5 have been delivered, we won't stop. And it's not just a matter of just moving fast. You know, if our customers tell us, on one hand, yes, getting access to resources whenever you need it, anywhere in the world, is very important. But there's another component of agility, and that is the breadth and depth of these services. It's not just storage, databases, compute, and networks. That was something where we were maybe in 2008, 2009. And actually, that's probably where still quite a few of the other players in this market are. It's such a rich ecosystem. We've been listening so closely to the kind of things that you want to do in the cloud that we now have services, a whole range of services in analytics, in mobile development, in IoT, in enterprise services. And of course, we also have a whole range of what I would call people services for you. Solution architects, account managers, professional services, professional support, all of those come with this package. And the cool thing is you can pick and choose whatever you want. We're strong believers in that we should not tell you how to develop your software or how to develop your systems. You should be free to pick and choose any of these services that you want. And if this would be just it, this is well over 70 services. But it's much richer than that. Because the AWS ecosystem is much more than just the AWS services. There's a whole range of ISVs that deliver their services on top of this. You want to do mobile payments? Okay, so you pull in the API of Stripe. You want to put telephony in there? You pull in Twilio. Yeah, and so there's all these different services that sit on top of AWS or around AWS that make this platform even more richer than that it is. And it's not just all these different categories. Within these categories, we have such deep features. Yeah, it's not just one type of compute. No, there's a whole series of compute in different types and different sizes. All of these things, you can pick exactly that particular resource that you need. The cool thing is, you can make mistakes. Yeah? I mean, in the past, if you would have had to buy hardware for this particular project or this particular system that you were building, if you bought the right hardware, if you made the mistake of guessing that this was going to be compute bound, but it turns out to be I/O bound, you're stuck. In this world, the only thing you have to do is you click another button and you get yourself another instance type. Yeah? You are free to make mistakes. And making mistakes is okay in this world. So we deliver new features and services pretty rapidly, and mostly driven by the fact that you are giving us so much feedback about what you like us to see built next, whether it's new services or whether it's new features, that we continuously respond to this. So last year, well over 700 new major features and services were launched. So what drives this sort of innovation? There's two drivers. One driver is sort of a behind-the-covers driver. Yeah? We continuously work on security, reliability, performance, scale, and cost. Yeah, but what does this mean? Well, for example, in operational security, there is no line in the sand that says, okay, we can stop here, this is good enough. No, you continuously improve, because bad actors improve as well. And you have to continuously adapt to make sure that we can continue to protect our customers in the best possible way. Same goes for reliability and performance. Performance as well. We've done, for example, a lot of hardware work to make sure that we could remove the network stack from our virtual machines and drop them into hardware such that customers, when they were accessing the network, didn't have to pay any virtualization tax. So for the past 2-3 years already, the performance on the network of AWS is rock solid. There's almost no jitter. It's purely done because we've done all these innovations under the covers to make sure that you get predictable performance. So these are drivers that we have for ourselves. Yeah? But most importantly, it is customer feedback that drives how our roadmap looks like. And we continuously reorder our roadmap, driven on the kind of things that you tell us you would like to see. Next to that, of course, you spend a lot of time with our customers, and so you get to see what are still pain points that were left there. Yeah. Take, for example, and maybe I'm still wondering in hindsight why we didn't deliver a search service earlier, because search is everywhere. Everybody needs to integrate search into his applications. Yeah, whether it's in your app, on your mobile phone, whether it's on your website, search is everywhere. All our customers were running Solar and Lucene to achieve that. All of them were complaining about the complexity of making that scale. And so when we launched Cloud Search, it really was in respect to seeing that all of our customers are doing this, let's build a service for them to help them with this. And now we even have two search services. You have Cloud Search and you have Elasticsearch. Yeah, and so both of them have their unique capabilities, and you can pick and choose whatever works best for you. And the third thing is that we really want to make development and IT simpler. I'm a strong believer that, and this goes back to a law that John Gall in the 60s, 70s stated, that a complex system that is built as a complex system almost always fails. A complex system that you build out of simpler components has a much higher likelihood to be able to be survivable. Yeah, and as such, we want to make sure that the components that we give you, the building blocks that we give you to build your systems, are as simple as possible. And also that we help you to simplify your development, making sure that you can build highly available, reliable, secure applications that can scale well at minimum cost. So let's take a look at sort of what are the things that we've done in the past 6 months in this world of customer-driven innovation. Yeah, so first area is analytics. Yeah, analytics is absolutely red hot at the moment. Not just on AWS, I think everybody's thinking about how to integrate AWS, or how to integrate analytics into their business processes, and what are the kind of things that we can discover to run our business better or to discover new business opportunities. And I think there's sort of 3 different types of analytics. One of them is what I would call the looking backwards one, the one that looks towards the past, the reporting service. And then you have them in the present, and then you have the ones that are looking forward. Yeah, so past really is sort of the traditional business intelligence. And you can use Redshift and S3 and EMR to do that, sort of the reporting style. And then for real time, we have a whole set of tools around Kinesis. In real time, it is really because real time is becoming more important because you're no longer interested in what was your inventory level yesterday. You're interested in what is it now. You're not interested in what your customers were saying about you yesterday. You want to know what are my customers saying about me right now. And so real time becomes a more important tool. And then the third area, that's the one that's looking towards the future, are prediction engines. And we'll get into that. Yeah? And so we have a whole box of components for you where you can pick and choose from to decide how do you want to do your analytics. Yeah? And we have tons of customers that are making use of all of these services. For example, Netflix is running massive computational engines, analytics engines, on one hand to drive sort of real-time recommendations towards their customers, but they also have a lot of analytics running continuously to drive their dashboarding to see how in real time their business is operating. Well, actually, let me go one back. Another interesting one in there is Philips. Philips Healthcare has developed a new platform that ingests many data points, on one hand from IoT devices like your health trackers or other medical devices, and combine that with data that comes from MRIs and CAT scans, and bring all of that data together for an individual, and then run analytics on that data to support the health of individuals better. So there's a lot of interesting new applications being built, driven by analytics. Data warehousing, we already talked about it, is definitely since the launch of Redshift really on the rise, because everyone can now get access to a data warehouse. But we realized that when these business units started using data warehousing by themselves, that they may not always have the right technical capabilities to do so. And so we decided to build Amazon QuickSight, which is a business intelligence environment that is running at a fraction of the cost of the traditional business development ones, business intelligence ones, but also was going to be blindingly fast. So we built an in-memory engine, it's called Spice, to help you with this, and also to guide you through the process of analytics. You no longer need to be a data analyst, specialist, to be able to use business intelligence. And so this service discovers your data sources automatically, discovers the schemas there, will combine data types, will give you suggestions about what kind of analytics you could run on this kind of schemas, and then suggests what best ways to visualize it. So this really has helped simplifying data warehousing, such that our customers in business units themselves can run any type of analytics they want on the data that they have without having to go to a centralized IT department. Talked already a bit about real time. It is more important to know what's going on right now. And we had to build actually this for ourselves as well. We have billions and billions of records that are created every minute on all the different resources that are being used within AWS. And we needed a way to actually collect that in real time, reliably, because we didn't want to lose any records. And so this system that we've built, called Kinesis, ingests this data for you, replicates it to 3 different availability zones, and then in real time triggers processing of this data for you. Again, many interesting customers there already. I'm going to pick here on the MLB, which is in the US, the Major League Baseball world. And so what they've done is they've put radars inside each baseball stadium. And so they can track the movement of all the players and the balls and all the other things that are happening on the field. In real time, they're ingesting this data and then play what-if scenarios for the spectators in the stadium. So if someone just hit the ball and ran to first base, then they will play a scenario, what if he wouldn't have run it, but if he would have slid towards first base? And there's many dead moments during a baseball game, so they're really building this sort of real-time analytics environment for the spectators to keep them busy during the game. Again, we've tried to make this simpler for a number of use cases. Quite a few of our customers were making use of Kinesis to ingest data and then store that data somewhere, not necessarily processing it during that time. They would put it in S3 or in DynamoDB. So given that we saw this use case happening, we built Kinesis Firehose. And Firehose makes it easy to take any streaming data source, and then do a number of traditional operations on it, like compacting and compressing, encrypting it, and then before storing it. So this was a common use case on top of Kinesis. We made it simpler for you to use. Yeah. But there also was another scenario that we saw happening, where people would want to run a number of very simple analytics in real time on data streams. Things like moving average, for example. Yeah? And so we built an environment on top of Kinesis called Kinesis Analytics that helps you in real time with simple SQL statements to process the data stream that's coming by before you're going to store it. Yeah, and so, for example, you can have Kinesis Analytics doing a weighted moving average operations there. You would fire that data back into Kinesis Firehose, who would store it in S3 and Glacier for archiving, and it would push it into Redshift, such that you can make use of QuickSight to do the analytics on it. So all of this is operating in real time on the AWS platform. So we really provide you with lots of support for real-time analytics. But again, don't take my word for it. I would like to invite on stage Cosimo Palmisano, the VP of Product Management of Decision.
Thanks. Buongiorno a tutti. Decision, una ex startup, perché abbiamo ricevuto fondi di investimento da fondi di investimento americani. Cosa fa Decision? Decision è una software company e realizziamo applicazioni verticali, molto spesso su AWS, per l'industrial IoT. La nostra vision è quella di aiutare le aziende a unire 4 pezzi fondamentali dell'azienda. Sono le persone, e le cito per primo non per caso, i processi esistenti, i dati e le cose, quindi tutto quello che è legato all'IoT. Il titolo è abbastanza provocatorio, chiedetevi sempre quando fate delle applicazioni se le persone parlano con le vostre macchine. Come dicevo prima, Decision è una piccola multinazionale, nata in Italia con fondi di investimento americani, abbiamo all'incirca 60 persone worldwide, distribuite fra East Coast, West Coast, americana e Italia. I nostri clienti sono tutte aziende molto grandi che lavorano in ambito utilities, in ambito telco, banche, e abbiamo all'incirca 200 clienti in 11 paesi. Sin dall'inizio non abbiamo avuto dubbi, a parte il fatto che molti clienti ci chiedevano di avere delle applicazioni sul cloud, di utilizzare Amazon Web Service. Le ragioni sono diverse, a parte quella appunto della richiesta diretta dei clienti. Condividevamo una serie di cose. Allora, innanzitutto Amazon Web Service ci dava la possibilità di essere molto flessibili e scalabili. Essendo partiti piccoli avevamo necessità di creare delle soluzioni rapidamente che scalassero velocemente insieme alle necessità dei nostri clienti. Devo essere onesto, anche il pricing model, come diceva prima Werner, è stato molto importante perché partendo piccoli riuscivamo a gestire l'intera scalabilità del processo partendo con delle piccole applicazioni che poi per fortuna sono cresciuti con i nostri clienti. Altra cosa non banale è che Amazon Web Service è software agnostica, per cui per noi era perfetto lavorare su una piattaforma cloud come questa. In realtà però la cosa più importante qual era? Era che se vedete l'immagine alla mia destra, sostanzialmente quando si costruisce un software enterprise si tende a lavorare per strati, quindi si aggiungono sempre più strati man mano che vengono fuori delle nuove esigenze. Per cui man mano che si sale, un po' come le ere geologiche, è sempre più difficile accedere agli strati più bassi. Invece Decision, sin dall'inizio, ha ragionato non in termini di layers, ma in termini di dimensioni, quindi abilitando tutte le diverse dimensioni, tra cui quelle della collaboration, della connettività, dell'analisi. E questo, diciamo, coincide con quella che è la visione architetturale di Amazon Web Service, che appunto, come avete visto prima, fornisce microservizi. Prima ho citato Industrial IoT, molti lo chiamano IoE, quindi Internet of Everything, a noi ci piace chiamarla Internet of Execution. Abbiamo realizzato negli anni dozzine di applicazioni verticali per i nostri clienti in diversi ambiti e appunto l'Internet of Execution per noi è la chiave, cioè l'obiettivo è quello di abilitare le persone all'interno delle aziende a prendere decisioni with confidence, come direbbero gli americani. Ok, andiamo a vedere alcune applicazioni. Negli ultimi mesi sicuramente siete stati inondati da concetti come l'industria 4.0, lo smart manufacturing. Quando però poi andate a vedere cosa accade nelle aziende manifatturiere, questo è quello che accade molto spesso. Cioè che al cambio del turno ci si incontra davanti a dei fogli, si vedono dei dati e si prendono delle decisioni per ottimizzare la qualità, la sicurezza, l'efficienza della produzione. Quello che abbiamo fatto per una grande azienda manifatturiera farmaceutica italiana, e adesso stiamo estendendo su altri paesi, è appunto ottimizzare questo processo. Cosa stanno facendo queste persone? Stanno prendendo una decisione, stanno collaborando e stanno guardando dei dati, quindi cercano all'interno del contesto delle informazioni di prendere decisioni. Quello che abbiamo fatto è stato creare con Decision, sviluppato tutto sul cloud di Amazon Web Service, una serie di dashboard a diversi livelli che permettessero al middle management, alle persone responsabili della produzione, ma fino ad arrivare ai responsabili di un territorio che vedono più impianti produttivi, dei touchscreen, dove potessero vedere dati provenienti dalla qualità, dalla sicurezza, dalla gestione degli ordini, tutti integrati e collaborativi, oltre ad essere touch ovviamente, quindi questo permette una facile fruizione del dato. Un'altra applicazione verticale che abbiamo fatto con un partner americano è stata quella di ottimizzare gli asset di un'azienda di paleoliche, quindi qui in questo caso diciamo, il livello di complessità era quello di mettere in collaborazione 5 dipartimenti diversi, dalle risorse umane fino all'ingegneria, fino ad arrivare alla logistica. In questo caso l'integrazione delle informazioni era enorme, nel senso che dovevamo gestire dati provenienti da fonti diverse, strutturate e non strutturate. Giusto per farvi un esempio, in questo dashboard esiste un'applicazione che prende i dati dal weather forecast per sapere se ci sarà più o meno vento in una zona e in più ci sono informazioni che arrivano dalla logistica o arrivano dalla produzione. Quindi tutte queste informazioni avevano un vantaggio, venivano fruite in maniera collaborativa dalle persone e quindi permettevano la schedulazione delle attività nei campi in Wyoming. Per Johnson & Johnson, invece, abbiamo realizzato una soluzione sempre nel cloud che permettesse di prendere decisioni in maniera rapida sul tema della selezione dei fornitori. Come potete immaginare, selezionare un fornitore non è facile, vengono utilizzate diverse informazioni, molte informazioni sono interne, per cui si passa attraverso tutte le informazioni che erano dell'ufficio acquisti, reliability del fornitore. In questo caso l'obiettivo era anche quello di mettere a confronto le informazioni provenienti dal social, per cui parliamo di dati che hanno velocità totalmente diverse rispetto a quelle che in realtà un'azienda ha all'interno dei propri sistemi. Per cui in questo caso quello che abbiamo realizzato di nuovo è stato uno strumento collaborativo che permettesse all'azienda di prendere decisioni velocemente. Social Customer Care, Intesa San Paolo, Telecom, utilizzano la nostra piattaforma, ci sono all'incirca 400 operatori customer service che lavorano in real time 24 ore su 24 all'interno della nostra piattaforma per gestire tutte le richieste dei clienti in ambito customer service. Quindi avete un problema, gli operatori di queste aziende rispondono attraverso il nostro sistema. Giusto, questo è un esempio, ho preso uno screenshot del settore utilities, come vedete mappiamo i dati in real time anche sulla parte legata alla georeferenziazione su Twitter, eccetera. Non spendo parole su questo, ma questa è, diciamo, l'architettura che abbiamo sviluppato per gestire dentro Amazon Web Service, per gestire 60.000 operazioni al minuto. Risultati ottenuti. Mi focalizzerei soprattutto su un aspetto, a parte la soddisfazione del cliente e la riduzione dei tempi di esecuzione. Abbiamo ridotto i tempi per creare un prototipo, quindi questo è fondamentale per un'azienda che vuole emergere sul mercato, la velocità nel creare prototipi e proof of concept. Cosa faremo prossimamente? Sfrutteremo al massimo tutto quello che ha a che fare con l'Amazon Web Service IoT Platform, quindi cercheremo di sfruttare tutte le tecnologie abilitanti per creare ancora maggiori nuove soluzioni verticali e più efficienti. Quindi cosa abbiamo imparato? Abbiamo imparato che la velocità è tutto e questa velocità si ottiene attraverso 4 pezzi fondamentali: prendere decisioni in contesto, la collaborazione, l'interoperabilità fra persone e dati e la capacità end-to-end di eseguire le cose. Tutto questo genera velocità. Perché la velocità è importante? Perché, come direbbe il nostro CTO Franco Petrucci, non sono più i pesci grandi che mangiano quelli piccoli, ma sono i pesci veloci che mangiano quelli lenti. Grazie.
I'm on that one. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, the importance in analytics, and especially in the IoT space, for example, is only increasing. I mean, the whole IoT space is exploding, and much of the things that happen in the IoT world are analytics driven. So these guys have a great business. Looking forward, making predictions. It's all in this AI space, and everybody thinks that is really scary. All this AI stuff. Robots are going to take over the world and things like that. But actually at the core of AI, in my eyes, there's 2 areas of pure standard computer science that is no magic actually at all. On one there's natural language processing, and the other hand is machine learning. And machine learning helps you with making these predictions. But in essence, machine learning is nothing else than taking data from the past, running some algorithms on it, and using that to make predictions about the future. Predictions about the future sounds like a magic thing, but what is it? Let me give you an example. You have an e-commerce site, you receive an order, and you've already 10 years of experience in taking orders. So you use the data from the past to make a prediction about whether your current order is fraudulent or not. You give a likelihood score to that. And if that comes above a certain threshold, you will give this order to one of your investigators to take a look at in person. That's it. That's all. It's not a magic. And actually, within Amazon.com, the retailer, we've been using machine learning forever. Many of the things that you see with Amazon on the consumer side, for example, your recommendations or product ads or shopping advice, all of those things are machine learning driven. But also on the back end, we use it everywhere. Trying to predict what the lead time is for a vendor. If you're going to order this set of products from this vendor, how long will it take to arrive here? The vendor may say one thing, but you might want to take his past history as sort of input into predicting the future. And I said earlier on fraud detection, but also take, for example, the text of a textbook. And this book came without any classification about in what area it falls into. So you can process the text and decide this is a physics textbook, or this is a book about computer science. Those things are all machine learning technologies. Now, it turns out that building machine learning applications is actually pretty hard. It looked as if you needed a lot of background expertise to be able to build machine learning systems. And then going from sort of the theory to doing that in production and running it at scale is actually quite a bit of a challenge. So we did a test at one moment. Yeah, so we had these 2 senior developers who had to basically put our customers in 2 different categories. Basically, with the knowledge that we had about them, they had to categorize them. It took them 2 months to achieve 92% accuracy. And in the background, we had been working on a machine learning service, where most of the smarts of the technologies, of the machine learning technologies, sit inside this service. Then we took a junior developer, gave him that service, and in 20 minutes, he had achieved exactly the same thing that these other guys had been working for almost 2 months on. Launching that service within Amazon totally exploded the whole use of machine learning. Counterfeit good detection, demand estimation, all things around customer support, everywhere we started to integrate machine learning into. And so we realized that this might be something that our AWS customers may enjoy as well. And so we launched Amazon Machine Learning, which is a very easy to use environment where you can build your own machine learning applications. And most importantly, you can turn it into a software component that you can integrate into anything else. So the first step is where you take your data sources, you choose a bidding strategy, things like that. And then step number 2 is to try and change a number of variables in this game, a number of sensitivities, and then you look at how your false positives and your false negatives are achieving and what kind of accuracy you can get. And once you're happy with that, with one click of a button, we generate a service for you that you can use that holds that machine learning model inside. And you can push batch predictions through there, but more important, it becomes a service that you can use. So as I said, if you are taking in an order and you have built this service that does this fraud detection engine, once the order comes in, you give it to the service, it gives you a score back, and you can decide what to do with that. So it becomes a software component for you to use, which is, I think, makes it that simple to integrate machine learning into anything and build smarter applications. Now the second area, big area, we just talked about analytics, the big area that is actually related to analytics is that of storing data and managing data. It's every company, every organization we talk to, they're talking all about how the tremendous increase in digital information that they had to process. Now we built things for that already, like Glacier, for example, our archiving service. And so we give you, again, a choice in storage options where you can decide exactly what matches best for the system you want to build. Whether you want to use file storage or block storage or object storage, or maybe you want to run a gateway on-premise and push data back into the cloud. All of these are available at your fingertips. You decide which one you want to use. In all of this, of course, databases continue to play an important role, especially relational databases. Many of our traditional applications that we built over time and relied on relational databases, and as such, again, we give you a choice in which database fits your needs best. There might be an open source database like MySQL or Postgres or MariaDB, which is a new version of MySQL. Or maybe you want to run a commercial enterprise-grade database like SQL Server or Oracle. Again, one click of a button, you've got that database on your hands. Now, quite a few of our customers that were running enterprise-grade databases on-premise but wanted to move to the cloud asked us for providing them with an alternative. Namely, yes, they would like to actually move to an open source database because they like the pricing model, but they wanted to have the functionality of an enterprise-grade database. And so, for 4 years, we worked on building Amazon Aurora, which is now the fastest growing service that we have within AWS. So Aurora basically has a MySQL front end, so it looks like MySQL, but it has our own homegrown backend that provides you with enterprise-grade performance and reliability. We replicate this data over 3 availability zones, and in each of those availability zones twice. That means that you have 6 copies of your data around, meaning that you can operate on it very fast, and it is highly reliable. And it moves really fast. It's better than performance is better, 5 times better than a typical high-end MySQL database, and it is 10 times cheaper than your enterprise-grade database that you probably were running on-premise. Now, going from on-premise, from an existing database to one of a database in the cloud, you have to migrate your databases. Now, that is not a trivial thing to do, especially if you don't want to take any downtime. Most of the tools that are out there, first of all, are extremely expensive, and they all force you to take downtime at one moment when you actually really want to do the last steps of migrating your database. We felt that was unacceptable. So we built the AWS Database Migration Service to help you replicate your database from on-premise into the cloud and help you with that transition. So we have this engine that continuously replicates data from your database on-premise into the cloud. It can be of any size, and we do it with real-time monitoring, and you can keep an eye on it. And we can do this in such a way that you don't have to take any downtime. It turns out that, as always, our customers are using this service in very innovative new ways. Not necessarily ways that we had anticipated. For example, customers are using this to do continuous replication from on-premise into the cloud without ever considering migrating. They just use this as a database replication engine. And it's very successful at that. Now, that scenario works really well if you have, let's say, an Oracle database in the on-premise, and you have an Oracle database in the cloud, and you want to migrate to there. That's a relatively straightforward path. Yeah? But what now if you want to migrate from an Oracle or a SQL Server database on-premise to Aurora in the cloud, or to Postgres in the cloud? You need to do quite a bit of work on that. Yeah? So that's why we built for you the schema translation conversion tool that migrates between one type of database and another type of database in the cloud. Yeah, so on one hand, we do schema translations there, things such as, translating the type of tables, partitions, sequences, things like that. And then the database functions. This is the hardest piece, yeah, because I think stored procedures and things like that inside databases, every database vendor has taken its own approach there. And so we'll provide code for you to actually translate it from one type of stored procedures into the new type of stored procedures that you want. And the same goes for views and triggers, for example. Each of those are different with different database vendors. And so we really help you there to migrate between one type of database in the on-premise to another one in the cloud. Getting data into the cloud can be a challenge, yeah, especially if you have enormous amounts of data. Yeah, for example, there's one of the big telescopes that sit in Puerto Rico. They basically have 5 trucks of hard disks that they want to move. Well, we learned from that sometimes you have so much data that you can't send it over the network. But you shouldn't underestimate the bandwidth of a FedEx box. Yeah? There's a lot of data that you can put in there and move to AWS. We decided to help you with that. Yeah? We don't only give you private connections into the cloud if you want to build your own circuits, but we also built this device for you, so that it makes it easier for you if you have large amounts of data to move it over to AWS. It's called AWS Snowball. It's a very rugged device that you can drop from 2 or 3 stories up, drop it, and it won't get damaged. It includes encryption, such that data that goes on there, if the shipper would lose the device, nothing is lost, everything is encrypted. And it has 50 terabytes in each Snowball in the first version, but you can put many of them in parallel there. And we made it as simple as possible here again. It actually has a little bit of a Kindle e-reader screen up front, an e-ink screen. And basically that has first a shipping label, it arrives at your site, you click a button on that, and the screen changes into giving you instructions how to use it. When you finish loading it, You give it another click, and the shipping label to return it to Amazon is there. And you can easily put 10 of those in parallel, and it's pretty high performance. You can easily saturate a 10 gig or 100 gig network without any problems. All of this already shows that we are very careful about this world where many of our customers have to live in both worlds. Yeah, I mean, if you're migrating, as I said earlier, 9,000 workloads like GE is doing over to AWS, that doesn't happen overnight. It's really, there's a world where there's going to be a time where you will live in both worlds at the same time. So for us, it's really important in this world of hybrid to make sure that you have the right tools such that you can live in both worlds. Yeah, whether that is around compute. For example, we make it easy for you if you have VMware images that you're running on-premise and you want to translate those into an Amazon machine image, that's easy to do. Or the other way around. If you build an Amazon machine image and you want to run it on-premise in VMware, we give you translation tools there. Networking, Direct Connect, is a very powerful mechanism for many of our customers who do not want to use the general internet to access our services, but you can build private MPLS circuits directly into the cloud. Security, and we'll get back to that later, is always first and foremost on our minds. Yeah, and as such, we need to make sure that, for example, identity and access management that works in the cloud federates and integrates with your single sign-on mechanisms that you may have on-premise, and where you can automatically assign roles and policies to individuals that have signed on-premise, but get IAM credentials on the other side. And also, our Active Directory service, of course, that runs in the cloud, needs to federate easily with Active Directory services that you have running on-premise. Goes for development lifecycle, data, deployment, management, all these tools need to work. For example, quite a few of our partners have built tools around this, but we provide also an integration into vCenter, which is the VMware management console that you use for your services on-premise, but we provide a plugin with that so that you can also manage compute resources in the cloud from one single console. So hybrid is really important. It's an important concept because many of our enterprises want to start off with using AWS to do innovative new things really fast while still maintaining maybe the system of records on-premise. I'd like to invite on stage Giorgio Gatti, the service manager of Mediaset Premium Play, to talk about their dual world of very innovative services. Giorgio.
Buongiorno a tutti, io sono Giorgio Gatti e sono Service Manager per i servizi Premium Play e Premium Online, i due servizi di video on demand di Mediaset Premium. Due parole su Mediaset Premium per partire. Mediaset Premium, come voi saprete, è la principale pay TV su digitale terrestre italiana, con oltre 2 milioni di clienti e un bouquet di 34 canali trasmessi su digitale terrestre. Abbiamo dall'anno scorso l'esclusiva della UEFA Champions League e trasmettiamo, per quanto riguarda la Serie A, gli 8 migliori club della Lega. Per quanto concerne i diritti cinematografici, abbiamo contratti con tutte le major nazionali e internazionali e diritti in esclusiva con due delle più importanti, quali Warner e Universal. Due parole su Premium Play e Premium Online. Che cosa sono? Sono due servizi di streaming over IP, dove Premium Play è un servizio creato nel 2011 per i nostri abbonati premium, dato gratuitamente agli abbonati di Mediaset Premium, mentre Premium Online è un servizio lanciato a luglio del 2015, dove un cliente può acquistare un abbonamento pure IP, solo streaming, quindi senza aver bisogno di accedere ai canali su digitale terrestre. Qual è la nostra sfida? La nostra sfida è quella di diventare il principale operatore italiano di over the top, cercando di raggiungere da qua a fine dell'anno 1,5 milioni di utenti. Perché sono qua a parlare oggi su questo palco a voi? Perché a marzo del 2015 il nostro top management ci diede 3 commitment fondamentali. Il primo, rifare un restyling completo di Premium Play, che era un servizio lanciato nel 2011 e che aveva bisogno di un nuovo look and feel e di nuove funzionalità. Secondo, lanciare una nuova offerta commerciale, ovvero Premium Online. E terzo, quello di abilitare tutto il bouquet dei nostri canali su questi 2 nuovi servizi non lineari. Questo con una delivery date di luglio 2015, quindi solo 4 mesi per poter portare a termine questa attività. I tempi sfidanti, uniti al fatto della preoccupazione dovuta ai carichi che la nuova piattaforma avrebbe dovuto sostenere per gli eventi calcistici, specialmente legati alla Champions League, che al momento abbiamo in esclusiva, ci hanno fatto ragionare e pensare molto su come approcciare questo nuovo progetto, perché storicamente la mia azienda era sempre stata abituata a avere infrastruttura on-premise, tutto on-premise, e quindi l'idea di cambiare il paradigma per noi era sfidante. Con il nostro nuovo partner tecnologico quale Accenture abbiamo deciso di cambiare il nostro paradigma dall'on-premise cercando di razionalizzare su 3 pillar fondamentali la nuova piattaforma che stavamo andando a costruire: sulla scalabilità, sulla flessibilità e, per la natura dei contenuti che utilizziamo, sulla sicurezza. Scusatemi. Questi 3 pillar li abbiamo trovati in Amazon Web Service, che chiaramente, se io sono qua oggi, è perché siamo riusciti a deliverare in time e on scope. 2 parole solo ad altissimo livello sulla nostra architettura, in modo tale che si possa capire. In questo momento, come vi dicevo, è il primo esperimento, il Premium Play è stato il primo esperimento su cloud del gruppo Mediaset, e quindi abbiamo tutta la parte di front-end, quella che in gergo tecnico viene chiamata Service Delivery Platform, ospitata su Amazon, mentre al momento restano ancora on cloud on-premise tutte le componenti legate alla legacy, ovvero i BSS, la content management system, la produzione dei contenuti e tutto ciò che è legato al nostro servizio. 2 parole per far vedere che effettivamente a posteriori le nostre preoccupazioni erano abbastanza fondate, il fatto che i carichi potessero essere importanti. Premium Play al momento, Premium Play e Premium Online al momento dal lancio del servizio a luglio 2015 hanno già toccato 700 utenti unici e un paio di record, in modo tale che si possa capire. Nell'occasione del 4 ottobre, una giornata di Serie A, sono stati toccati il record di 1 milione di contenuti visti all'interno della giornata, e purtroppo nella scorsa partita di Champions, abbastanza sfortunata per il mio modesto parere, della Juve, abbiamo toccato i 130.000 utenti contemporanei in streaming sulla piattaforma, con circa 300 gigabit erogati sulla rete italiana di video. Qualche numero per capire com'è la rappresentazione del nostro servizio, in modo tale che potete capire anche perché necessitiamo di qualità. Se fate un paio di somme potrete vedere che il 60% della nostra base utenti utilizza ancora second screen, quindi device in mobilità e quant'altro, ma il 40% utilizza device che abilitano la visione sul full screen, ovvero la televisione di casa. Per tale motivo il paradigma dell'over the top, che normalmente è considerato un best effort, si deve spostare a un paradigma di qualità percepita, vista sul televisore di casa, assolutamente di qualità. Qual è il benefit alla fine che abbiamo raggiunto lavorando con Amazon? Di fatto il primo è stato quello chiaramente di riuscire a raggiungere il goal di rilasciare nei tempi previsti, ma soprattutto usando tutte le flessibilità commerciali che Amazon ci ha messo a disposizione, quale le service instance e il pay per use, riuscire ad avere un risparmio a livello economico che si quantifica intorno al 50% dei costi equivalenti che avremmo avuto se avessimo realizzato on-premise tutta la nostra infrastruttura, tutta la nostra piattaforma. Questa cosa è diventato di fatto un caso di successo a livello aziendale, infatti come dire, la pietra ha cominciato a rotolare, cioè da luglio del 2015 che abbiamo lanciato questo servizio, già nuovi servizi e nuovi progetti sono in corso con Amazon Web Service e di fatto il commitment avuto dal nostro top management è quello di approcciare quanto più possibile la cloud experience e la cloud strategy per cercare, su tutti quei nuovi progetti, quelle nuove iniziative e soprattutto su tutti quei progetti di obsolescenza tecnologica che fanno sì che comunque si possa pensare di trasferire un servizio anche as is dall'on-premise verso il cloud. Questo di fatto è tutto. Volevo ringraziarvi. Grazie. Lascio la parola al padrone di casa.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. So, we've done databases, we've done data, we've done analytics. Of course, none of this works if you can't do anything with your data. So, for us, again, we want to make sure that you have choice in what you do. Yeah, we already talked about the different types of machine images and different types of instance types and things like that. But I think in compute, there's 3 different areas that we see as well. On one hand, there's the virtual machine world, sort of your traditional world where we started off with. Then there is the whole rise of containers, yeah? And then the newer models where you can just write some functions and drop them somewhere, they get executed for you under certain conditions. Each of them have their own role in the development process. So for example, with virtual machines, yeah, you might run some software, some standard off-the-shelf software in there. Maybe you run an SAP instance in your virtual machine with some homegrown software around it. You create an Amazon machine image out of that. That's sort of the output of your configuration and development process, the Amazon machine image, which you then launch. Updating that often happens through patching, not necessarily through creating a new AMI. Because what you want to do, you might not want to take that service down that you've built. Yeah? So you update the existing software. Containers are often the direct output of your development process. They're a container file. We, in this case, started off with supporting Docker. And basically, the output of your development process is this container file. And that container is immutable. Because basically what you do, if you want to update it, you create a new version of the container. And then swapping the containers using our schedulers. So it's a different development methodology. And functions, well, functions operate at such a short time frame. It's just like programming and dropping your code somewhere. So virtual machines, I often see them running, days, if not weeks, sometimes months or longer. Containers run sort of scale up and down in a matter of minutes or hours. And functions operate at the level of milliseconds. So very different development methodologies in very different worlds. We see a clear shift from one side to the other side. There's a really big trend to simplify and just build functions without ever having to run one virtual machine or one container. One thing that we clearly see and that we had to address was many customers were asking us for much larger memory machines to work with. Yeah? Quite a few of you want to run SAP HANA, or if you're into the open source world, you might want to run Spark. All of them really need massive amounts of memory. So we released the Amazon EC2 X1, which has 2 terabytes of memory in it. It also has a quad processor E7 in it. That's a processor that we developed together with Intel to make sure, because it's not just enough to have massive amounts of memory in there. it is also important to be able to process that with high parallelism. So it's a very successful machine, really targeting towards modern, mostly analytic type workloads. Now, also, in this whole world of compute, we try to make things easier for you. And one particular segment where many of us can use a lot of help to simplify and easy and manage it is in the world of high-performance computing. And so I'd like to invite on stage Beppe Ugolotti of NICE here from Italy, who have recently joined the Amazon family, and let him talk about what they're going to do for high-performance compute users. Beppe. Thank you.
Thank you, Werner. Buongiorno a tutti, il mio nome appunto è Beppe Ugolotti, sono un giovane ingegnere laureato al Politecnico di Milano nel 1970, quindi tempi remoti, che diciamo circa 20 anni fa decise di fare una società in un vecchio cascinale in cima a una collina del Monferrato, in mezzo ai vigneti e ai boschi. Per fare cosa? Beh, la decisione fu a quel tempo di occuparsi di calcolo distribuito per gestire sistemi distribuiti sparsi in giro per il mondo o per grossi cluster, per applicazioni di vario tipo, per lo più anche di supercalcolo, calcolo parallelo, avendo fin da allora un'idea ben precisa, che era quella di gestire questi sistemi di calcolo distribuito molto complessi con una interfaccia. Si stava diffondendo all'epoca internet, quindi un'interfaccia web, una graphic user interface web, allora lo si chiamava Grid Portal, sviluppata inizialmente per la Ferrari, ma poi divenuta, diciamo, un prodotto ampiamente diffuso in tantissime altre industrie, chiamato Engine Frame. Aggiungendo questo importante strumento un'altra funzionalità, che era quella di consentire la remotizzazione di output di queste grosse elaborazioni, del post-processing di grosse immagini 3D. Pensiamo a un giacimento geologico, alla fluidodinamica attorno a una vettura, remotizzare queste visualizzazioni 3D, batch, o anche applicazioni interattive tipo CAD, CAM, CAE e così via, realizzando praticamente delle virtual workstation, ovvero pensiamo che con questo software i nostri PC o i nostri laptop o i nostri iPhone possono diventare le più potenti workstation a seconda del server che elabora in quel momento certi programmi. In virtù di quest'idea si conquistò subito un largo numero di clienti in campo automobilistico aerospaziale, pensate a società come Ferrari, BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Jaguar Land Rover, McLaren, tutte le società di Formula 1 hanno il nostro software, aziende aerospaziali tipo Boeing, Airbus, Northrop Grumman, Sikorsky e chi più ne ha più ne metta, aziende petrolifere tipo Eni, Total, Statoil, Maersk, ConocoPhillips e così via, società chimiche, Dow Chemical o farmaceutiche tipo Novartis, prestigiose università e e così via. Diciamo abbiamo circa 200 clienti nel mondo, sparsi dalla Cina agli Stati Uniti, dalla Scandinavia al Sudafrica. Per supportare questi clienti abbiamo realizzato un team di eccellenti sistemisti e programmatori, ovviamente. E in virtù forse di ciò, 6 mesi fa iniziamo il dialogo con Amazon, scoprendo immediatamente tutta una serie di sinergie tra la nostra società e AWS. Sinergie che sono ovviamente la passione che abbiamo nei confronti dei nostri clienti, la passione per l'innovazione. Vogliamo essere una società che crea l'informatica, una società di frontiera. Dai primi discorsi si intuì subito che questo ci dava la possibilità di accrescere ulteriormente i nostri centri di ricerca che abbiamo ad Asti e in Sardegna, a Pula, aumentando quindi la possibilità di dare nuovo lavoro ai nostri figli, alle nuove generazioni di ingegneri, di informatici, ad avere software made in Italy. Questa è un po' la mia un po' romantica ambizione. E poi non ultimo, direi forse il sogno più ambizioso, è quello di, oserei dire, democratizzare il supercalcolo. Oggi con le potenze elaborative di memorizzazione che sono sempre più disponibili, è possibile simulare grossi modelli un tempo impensabili da simulare, grossi sistemi di sistemi, il cosiddetto big challenge. Queste cose ad oggi sono fatte solo in pochissimi centri di supercalcolo. Credo che una infrastruttura di cloud come quella che sta realizzando Amazon renderà queste applicazioni fruibili agli scienziati, agli ingegneri, a tutto il mondo. E questo non farà altro che migliorare la qualità della vita e aiutarci a risolvere i grossi problemi che le future generazioni andranno ad affrontare. Per concludere, condivido assolutamente questa sensazione di rivoluzione, di evoluzione che l'informatica mai nella sua storia, e io credo di conoscere la storia dell'informatica, ha avuto. Siamo di fronte a una sorta di salto quantico della storia dell'informatica e penso che sarà bello condividere con tutti voi e con gli amici e colleghi di Amazon questa esperienza. Grazie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to the Amazon family. And together, we will democratize technical computing and make it simpler for everyone to actually get access to these high-quality environments. So we talked about virtual machines. The rise of containers is definitely something that is becoming more and more popular in software development. Yeah. And so we deliver for that the Amazon EC2 container service. It's focused on Docker, so you can launch and terminate Docker instances. We have a registry for you available where you can hold them, private Docker repositories. Many of our customers are already making use of these of container services to build their applications. And so what we want to do is to make sure that AWS is the absolute best place for you to run your containers in production. So on one hand, you have the container service. Secondly, there's a container registry where you can register your containers, and from there you can launch them and manage them and configure them. We have an AZ-aware scheduler, meaning that you can place containers over multiple availability zones to make sure that your applications are highly available. And it integrates with Compose, which is a tool that Docker gives you to create during your development process Docker container layouts, let's put it like that. But all of this, even though containerization makes sort of deployment and management and running things part of your development process, we felt it should be much simpler than that even. We had a lot of customers that were running whole fleets of EC2 instances just to do a few tasks that should have been much more simpler. And so it's really, for example, we had a customer, WeTransfer, don't know if you know that, it's from Amsterdam. They provide this service where you can upload files that are much larger than you can send by email, and they manage that for you. They send these files to other people. Whenever a file was uploaded into S3, what they needed to do was they wanted to run a virus check on it and compress it. For that, they had to run a whole set of EC2 instances that were continuously monitoring what was happening in these S3 buckets. But where we want to go to a model is where whenever a file is uploaded, just some code is being triggered to be run. That's what you really want in this particular scenario. Yeah? And for that, we developed something called AWS Lambda, which is a complete serverless environment. Yeah? You have to no longer manage any of your servers. And the important thing is, for example, take this scenario. Yeah? You've built an app where you uploaded an image, you upload an image to S3 that someone has just taken. That triggers a Lambda function that retrieves the metadata from that image. Yeah? Stores it into DynamoDB. When you do that, another Lambda function is triggered to figure out whether this image is actually trending in popularity, and then moves that again back into a DynamoDB table, which then triggers another Lambda function that if this is to notify the individual that is actually uploading its image through a notification through SNS, all of this whole application contains no servers whatsoever. Yeah, it's all just simple, small functions written by you. And so you have many different scenarios that we are already seeing there. It's the analytics scenarios where, with Kinesis streams, if the real-time data flows in, you no longer want to run an EC2 instance to actually process that data. You just trigger Lambda functions based on that. Quite a few serverless backends are being built already. And this is really a hot trend at the moment. Yeah, where basically either where you have a web app or whether you have a mobile app, you make use of what's called the API gateway. We'll talk about it in a minute. But each of those API actions are just Lambda functions that you just write, you drop it in the cloud, and it will be run for you whenever you determine that's necessary. Lots of these customers are already having Lambda in production, and we really push hard on this. We're innovating really fast on this. So we started off with just supporting JavaScript. Now we also support Java and Python, and we'll get to that in a minute. Also have integration with the API gateway and with many of the other tools. Yeah? Also integration in VPC. You can run your Lambdas in VPC. We started off with that you could only run them for a short time, but now you can run them all the way up to 5 minutes if that's what you want. And you can have sort of scheduled functions for you. Support Python now, and since recently also Node.js 4.0, which means that you can use things like promises and things like that in your language constructions. Very, very important. Yeah. So I mentioned already the API gateway. Many of you will be developing APIs around the software that you've built at one moment, whether that is your traditional system of records that you want to shield, if you want to build all sorts of new apps, you're making use of that. Maybe you have new materials, new systems that you have built, want to put an API on it, because you want to open it up to others in your organization to use, or maybe towards partners. Or maybe you have something that you want to sell for your API. Turns out building APIs is hard. First of all, you never get a second chance to release your API. Yeah? APIs are forever. Because once your partners or customers have started to build against it, you're stuck with it. Yeah? You can't just turn it off and say, oh no, sorry, you made a mistake, we have to do it again. That's not a thing you can do with APIs. You have to take real care there. And so monitoring, managing streams, not overloading it, not browning out, all these kind of things, authentication, security, it's not trivial. So we built the API gateway for you such that you can, so it makes it easy for you to sort of have an API over your backend and that you can access them from the apps that you're building. And indeed, mobile is everywhere. You know, we see a real increase in making use of AWS and mobile. We already had delivered a number of mobile services, mostly because we see this sort of dual world. Yeah, so on one hand, there are the devices, and on the other hand, there's the functionality. And it turns out the functionality and data of these mobile devices often lives in the cloud, where your device is just a window over a functionality that lives in the cloud. Yeah? And so you have the device, and you have the backend, and we deliver a whole range of services, of course, around that being able to build those device backends. Yeah, whether that is notifications, or whether it's analytics, or identity, for example. We have Amazon Cognito, which is our identity service that can hold the identities of the individuals on the device, encrypt that data, and then sync that data back into your backend in the cloud. Again, many customers using this already. But what we saw was that many of these mobile developers are actually really good on the device. They're actually not that good at building the backend, or not that good. It's not their expertise. And so we looked for, how can we simplify this? How can we make mobile backend developers easier for mobile developers? So we built something called AWS Mobile Hub. Basically, this is sort of it's a question and answer environment where you click through some things that you really want out of your backend. On one hand, what kind of identities do you want to support? Twitter, Facebook, Google, Amazon, pick your choices there. How do you want to send notifications? How do you want to stream your data back to the device? What sort of content delivery mechanisms do you want to use? Yeah? What kind of analytics do you want to do? And so you fill in basically point and click through this whole environment, and then we'll generate the app for you. Basically, what to run on the device and what to run in the backend, so that you no longer have to manage your backend resources for you. Now, at this moment, then you have that app, that simple app that we've built for you. You still need to test it. And that turns out to be one of the harder problems out there. I don't know if any of you here are mobile developers, but I've seen enough, especially younger businesses, where the whole kitchen table is full of different devices. And then loading them on there and testing them in production turns out to be a bloody nightmare. Yeah? And so what we've done for you is help you here. We basically put all these devices in our data centers. Racks and racks full of these devices. And then we built a service around it called AWS Device Farm. Yeah? And in Device Farm, you can automatically load your mobile applications into there and test them, get also to reports and screenshots and things like that back, how they're working. Yeah? Make it easier for you to develop mobile applications with this very strong backend in the cloud. It is not just mobile, the mobile world, that is where we've done a lot of innovation in. Many of our customers were already building IoT applications on top of our platform for quite a while. GE, for example, is instrumenting gas turbines where data flows back onto AWS to be analyzed. Tata Motors is a company in India. They have, I think, 200,000 trucks on the road in India. They're instrumenting all of those trucks and have data flow back so they can do preventive maintenance on it. Philips City Touch is a very interesting one. They've built this completely new urban streetlight system where streetlights are being replaced by LED lights, and each of those lamps actually also has a small GPS modem in them. Data flows back from all these lamps to a centralized position in the city, on top of AWS, of course, where you can get insight into energy usage. But not only that, you can actually also control those lamps. So if you have a football match on one side of the city, and you have your train station over there, and you can create a different colored lighted path through the city to actually guide football fans back to the train station. Yeah, and so all of these kind of things are already existing. They were already built on top of AWS. So we took a good look at how our customers were building things, what their main pain points are, and have solved them for them. So this is a world that consists of two different things. Yeah? On one hand, there's sensors, and the other hand, there's actuators. So sensors basically generate data, actuators execute commands that you want. In our last big user conference in Las Vegas, we built a small greenhouse, and that had many of these in them. So the sensors may be temperature and humidity and light and things like that, and the actuators are a heater or a humidifier or an ability to open a window, things like that. Now, building these apps, building these systems have been challenging over time. You have to deal with millions of devices out there. The network capabilities are not always as strong as that you would like them to be. And of course, you want this stuff to be absolutely rock solid secure. So we built AWS IoT platform for you to be able to connect and manage these devices. And so indeed, we built a gateway that can handle billions and billions of devices. We give you the choices between TLS and MQTT as protocols to connect the devices back to the gateways. And we assign X509 certificates to this for you so that you can uniquely identify the device and actually make use of that to encrypt the connection between the device and the gateway. And actually, I think yesterday or the day before, we launched the ability in IoT to bring your own certificates as well, if that's what you want. And of course, then we have all the other tools behind it to help you with this. So let's take a look at it, what's there. Of course, on one hand, there's the things that are out there. After all, that's what we're connecting. Connect that to the device gateway that can handle billions of connections there. And then, to make sure that we keep this as simple as possible, we build a rules engine there for you. Basically, in some simple SQL statements, you can already react to data that is coming in there. And you don't need to run EC2 fleets or things like that. You can just use the rules to do simple actions. If temperature goes over 80, open the window. Something like that. Simple things like it. Then there is a registry, basically, that holds the information about the devices that you own, and you can do sort of proximity search. You can say, give me all the lamps in this room. And then there's the challenge, of course, especially in the actuator world, what to do if those devices are offline. If you want to operate them, if you want to tell the humidifier in the greenhouse to switch on, but the device is not 24/7 connected. That would be a waste of resources. So you want to connect now and then back to the mothership to figure out, do I need to change? Do we need to switch on? And so we built a construction there for you called device shadows. So that this device this shadow represents the device in the real world. So what you do is you program the shadow, you get access to its latest state, you can set new state, things like that. And then whenever the device comes online, it will check with its device shadow to make sure it has to upload the new state and to actually take on any commands that have been left in the device shadow for it. Makes it easier to build these systems. And of course, you still get to build all of your own app, your own analytics, or your own control systems or dashboards to go with that. We integrate quite well with many of the other platforms out there, or actually to say all those platforms have made sure that they integrate with AWS IoT as well. And many of the hardware manufacturers are making sure that AWS IoT runs on their devices in a rock-solid manner. Now, a last point that I want to address is one of the most important ones. Security will be forever our #1 priority. Protecting your business and your customers must always be your first and foremost priority. I think that goes for everyone, regardless whether you run in the cloud or not. Protecting your customers needs to be your #1 priority. Otherwise, you should not be in business. And so for us, this will be forever our #1 investment area. On one hand, on the operational side, protecting you in real time, monitoring the networks, keeping bad guys out. All of that is something that we continuously invest in and innovate in under the covers. But we also make sure that, for example, at the physical level, our data centers, the access to the data centers, who has control over those kind of things, is very, very strictly controlled and audited. I cannot get into any of our data centers, which is okay because I shouldn't be there. Yeah? So it's very strictly controlled. So we have many certifications achieved there that demonstrate, how we are operating our data centers. All of those reports are available for you as customers, and we periodically audit all our processes and procedures to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information about how we are operating in our data centers. But also on the software side, of course. We continue to evolve our virtual private cloud offering that allows you to cordon off a piece of the cloud, connect your systems back to your own data centers. We launched the web application firewall. That means that you can actually feed information back to us if you feel that you're being under attack at level 7. Level 7 attacks are difficult for us to detect from a distance because we don't know whether you just become really popular or whether there's a denial of service going on. But we give you mechanisms to inform us about that so that we can help you and block traffic at the edges. Encryption remains the most important tool that you as a customer have to decide who has access to your data. And I really want to urge you to do this. Yeah? At the minimum, you should encrypt your critical business data and personal identifiable information of your customers. And you should do that, regardless whether you do it in the cloud or on-premise. This is just good security hygiene. You have to do this. Yeah? We give you all these tools and mechanisms to do it. Yeah? And I think these days, after all the revelations that we've heard, it's even more important for you to realize this is the only tool you have to make sure that you are the only one who has access to your data. Make use of that. Identity management, of course, is important. All the policies and rules, we continue to innovate there as well. Active Directory integration, federation, things like that. And for many of you who are subject to all sorts of compliance regulations, we've built a set of tools around automatically detecting your for example, automatically detecting your environment, but also allowing you to set rules on those environments. For example, in my environment, we're only allowed to launch an EC2 instance inside the VPC. Or you're only allowed to start this instance, and it needs to be at least, if it's at least part of one security group. All those rules you can put in place to make sure that things are being executed in the way that is in accordance to the compliance that you need to follow. And I want to come back to this one. I know that in the past, many have said, yeah, we would like to use encryption, but it is so hard. Yeah? And we've given you Cloud HSM, which is the hardware security module, where you can put your keys in the cloud, but nobody can touch those keys. If someone touches that device, the keys automatically get destructed. We give you key management service to help you. We sort of do key rotation and things like that. But we've also just released the AWS encryption SDK to make sure that you can integrate encryption into everything that you do. Make it easier to encrypt data, make it easier to manage your keys. And it's really important. Again, I want to really stress this. This is the tool you have to make sure that you are the only one who decides who has access to your data. Please make use of this. And it's cool because in the past, you had these two things that were always in conflict with each other. Yeah? You either could become more agile and move faster, or you had to choose to be secure. But with all the tools that we've given you in the cloud, and we see that quite a few of our customers make a decision to move to the cloud purely because of the security tools available for them in the cloud that are not available anywhere else. So now you have an ability to and become more agile, and move faster, and stay secure at the same time. So with that, I think there has never been a better time to invent and build and move fast and build great new things. So with that, I would say, go build and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Grazie per la vostra partecipazione al keynote. Il Summit AWS continua con le breakout session che inizieranno tra pochi minuti.